Hi everyone, this is Dr. DeBusk, and this week we're going to talk about plant propagation. So what is plant propagation? Well, it's simply creating another plant. You can do that two different ways, either sexually or asexually. If it's sexually, you're using seeds. If it's asexually, you're taking an exact clone of the plant, and you can do that a whole bunch of different ways, through cuttings, through division, through grafting. So we're going to show you some of these ways to do that. So with me I have Robbie Pletcher, who is the lab manager. Say hi, Robbie.
Hi.
And he is going to help me with showing you some of these techniques. Here are some examples of some cuttings that have been done recently by students. You can see here we have some basil that has some stem cuttings done, but we also have some stem cuttings of some mulberry here. So you can see this is a fruit tree with it just looks like a stick right now, but hopefully that will leaf out and it'll grow some roots. We also have some leaf cuttings. So not all plants react the same way based off of the propagation method. So you really need to know your plant and know which way to propagate it in order for it to be successful. Some plants form bulbs, which is a modification to its stem that's a resting state. So these can be planted and they can grow another plant. These are often in plants such as monocots like onions, and we have some canna lilies here. We also have some caladiums that have recently been planted, and you can see that we have, it's just starting to poke through. So these will be turning into new plants. I recently bought some bulbs to plant at my house, so I wanted to show you what they look like. So here we have the box of bulbs, and you can see it comes in this moist media here, and these look very different than onions, so different bulbs will look differently, and they kind of break off here. You can have some pretty large ones or pretty small ones, and you typically plant them when the soil is getting a little warmer.
I'm Robbie. I'm the lab supervisor here for Valencia College in our greenhouse. Helping out Dr. DeBusk today, we're going to take a cutting of this rosemary. We're going to hit it with some oxen to make sure that it grows some roots. And then we'll show you everything that we have to do this, the whole process. So first off, you want to start with clean tools. We've got some 70% isopropyl alcohol here. You're just going to wipe down whatever tools you're going to use to do the cutting. So here we are, just wiping this down. And when you're done, you will want to hit this with some kind of oil, either WD-40 or whatever oil you have, to keep your tools waterproof so they don't rust. You are going to want to start closer to the top. The woodier it gets, the less likely it is to start rooting. So let's just take a cutting right here. We're going to take this cutting, pretty close to the node that's at the bottom. The nodes are where we're going to have leaves coming out, and you're going to just strip off all of these leaves because you don't need them. They're underground, they're going to rot anyways. You don't want to have a chance to introduce more bacteria. This was a little big, so we'll take off a little bit more. Let's make it a little bit shorter. Because the more leaves that are there, the more it's going to try to still transpire, and the more water it's going to need. So those are so clean. So we have our cutting here. We took off some leaves off of that bottom node.
And you cut that at an angle, right?
Yep, it's at a very slight angle, if you can kind of tell.
Yep.
Might be hard to see. We just have here some rooting hormone. It's generally auxin-based. There's synthetic ones that are a little bit different, but they do the same thing. You just tap off the extra powder, and then what we're going to do is we're just going to poke it here into the soil, make sure that node gets down in there, and that's going to really be it. We're going to water it to make sure that it's very hydrated, and then we're going to cover it. We have these produce bags. So you'll get this, you'll tent it up. You might have to put a stake in there to make sure. This will help keep it in a humid environment. It'll help to make sure that it has the best chance of success. And that's it. That's really all it takes to do cuttings. So go find your favorite plants, start taking cuttings and getting more of them. Okay, so we have one of our nice variegated hibiscus here that we're going to try to graft onto one of our ones inside. The thing with grafting is you want to get a similar diameter for the scion, which is what we're taking this from. This is the part that you add onto a plant. We're going to take this scion and we're going to add it to the rootstock that's in the greenhouse. I'm just going to cut it here for now. and then I'll size it a little bit better once we get into the greenhouse. And I cleaned these again before I'm using them now. So let's go back into the greenhouse. Back in the greenhouse, I simply just stripped off the side branches to put a little bit less stress on this graft once we get started. You can see here, if you want to come over, how the wood is definitely lignified here, but it's starting to get a little bit greener. We're going to go for that greener section. There's a better chance of it healing together with the plant better. So we're going to start here. You may get a nice good cut, and then we're going to check out the spot because you do want these to line up to be about the same size. So we've chosen this part of this hibiscus. You can see they're almost the same diameter, the same width. So we're going to do our graft right here. And so now we have to prep the two pieces. The scion's going to have to be shaved down, and this is going to have to be split open. So we'll do this. You just want to make some thin cuts, and you can see the different layers of the tissue. You're going to want to make sure that you line up these layers of tissue with the graft when you put it onto the rootstock. You want to be sure here too, this is where a lot of grafts fail. If you introduce pathogens into this area, you're going to basically be sealing it up on the inside. So if you seal up pathogens, it has a higher chance of rotting. All right, so see, it's pretty thin. You just want to make like a wedge. Will it show up better here? That's kind of wedge shaped. And so we're going to come over here to where we want to do our graft. I'm going to remove this side leaf. And this knife was cleaned with the alcohol as well. And we're just going to try to split it right down the middle. So you see, this will fit in very nicely. And then we have some, this might be the only material that you really need to go get. We use parafilm. There are some newer versions that will be biodegradable. This is just basically like wax. It's going to keep it moist in there. It's going to keep everything from getting in there, potentially introducing more pathogens. It'll just be a nice clean environment for it. So we're going to take our scion, get it down here in the rootstock. Try to make sure that you're lining up those tissues again. It's really simple. Dark green to dark green, light green to light green. And that looks like it's going to fit pretty well. We're going to get our parafilm. Get this ready. And it's stretchy, so this is what you want. You want to stretch it, I stretch it out at least a little bit. And you want to start at the base here of the rootstock and get it nice and tight. You want to make sure there's good contact between the two sets of tissue. This is the trickiest part. Give it a nice squeeze and just start wrapping it around. Oh, I broke. That's okay. It sticks to itself pretty well, so we can just, once we get this up here, continue wrapping with that same piece. So you see I'm just putting it back on here and starting to wrap again. And that's it. Make sure it's nice and tight. You don't want any air gaps, it'll dry out. It'll make it harder for it to succeed. And then I'm just gonna, for myself, cut it here a little bit above the node. And we'll check back in a few weeks, see how it did.
You can see this hibiscus has already been grafted, and you can see that it has these variegated leaves, and it's going to have this red flower on a plant that I believe has different flowers here, but you can see it doesn't have this variegation. So you can create a hibiscus or tomatoes or plenty of other things that you can graft. Citrus is very common, where it has these two different varieties on one plant. And you can see the healed graft right here. This is probably about a year old. And you can see where that graft was, and it's nice and healed. And now this has been growing for quite a while, and I believe it's actually bloomed previously and has a bud on it. And there's also another one right here, and you can see that graft right in there. Grafting is very common in fruit trees, and so we can see here, these are some avocado trees, and you can see that clear graft right there. If you have an orange tree, that you might be able to see that graft, and a lot of times it looks kind of like a knuckle that's developed after that graft is old enough. We could see another one here that still has a little remnants of that parafilm on there. Unfortunately, grafting is a bit of an art and it takes a lot of practice, so occasionally you don't have success with it. So my recommendation for that is to just keep trying so you can get something that is successfully growing. Hopefully you learned a few techniques from Robbie, and we'll get out there and give propagation a chance. There's all kinds of different techniques when it comes to cuttings and grafts, and there's even air layering that you can try out. So watch some additional videos and practice those out, because it opens up the world to growing plants once you know some new propagation techniques. And I'd like to thank Robbie for helping us with this video.